Matthew chapter 24 and verse 3 from the New King James Version. Or, now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" I'd like to start off by saying Barak Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Rachah Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. Pretty much, this is based off of the latter part of this verse here. I just got it off of the New KJV because of the word age, and this is very important to understand, because when we read it in the King James Version, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, meaning Yahushai, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" But the word that's actually there for the word world in the Greek, when we go to the word world, this is why it's important to look up words. The word there is eon. Eon. All right. And eon is forever, an unbroken age, perpetuity of time, eternity. So it could be, dealing with different, it could be applied differently. But in this case, it's a period of time or an unbroken age, meaning a time of rulership. And pretty much that time of rulership would be the time of the Roman Empire. And this is why when we search the scriptures, in the book of First Peter, chapter 1, the prophets that prophesied of Yahushua, going all the way back to the law, the prophets, the history, whenever the scriptures, all throughout the scriptures that spoke about the Lord, the prophets that have been here since the beginning of the world always looked for the coming of the Messiah, because they understood that once the Messiah came on the earth and suffered, the next step after that would be the kingdom of heaven, which there would be a series of unbroken ages, beginning all the way from the beginning all the way up until now. So we're at the very last kingdom or age that would rule, which would be the Edomites' kingdom, which is pretty much the ancient Roman Empire resurrected, for lack of better words, or reincarnated. When we go to 1 Peter 1 and 9, it says, "Receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your souls." And this is pretty much really truly when the salvation comes. At the end, when all of these different kingdoms are put down, the Lord, the Messiah, Yahushua, is set back up on his throne, and all nations are subjected unto him, and the Israelites would be ruling once again on the earth underneath Yahushua. That's when the salvation comes, not before that. It says, "Of which salvation the what? The prophets have inquired and searched diligently," right? Because they read about it. They were shown visions of it. You have to understand that when the prophets wrote these visions, they didn't see words. They didn't just see words. They saw visions. They saw similitudes. They actually saw the Lord. They saw the destruction. They saw missiles in what they described the best way they could in their time, because they didn't exist back then. They saw, the chariots doing battle. They saw Yahushua. They saw Michael. They saw the angels fighting against Esau, against his armies. So when we read this, it's not just, they weren't just words that they wrote. It wasn't just, something that they happened to see, and it was all in words, and then they just wrote down the words that they saw. No, they actually seen visions. They actually seen, images, similitudes, and they wrote them down. So it says, "Of which salvation the prophets have inquired and searched diligently, who prophesied of the grace, which is Yahushua, that should come unto you." Right, because this is what would, cement us, or cement the relationship back between the Heavenly Father and us, which is a reconciliation. All right, it says, matter of fact, I'm going to read this scripture that the brother, wow, man, Wow, you brought us, man. You brought us. You know what? Let me read a couple of these and then I'll come back to it. This is 2nd Ezra 7:43. But the day of doom shall be the end of this time and the beginning of the immortality for it to come, wherein corruption is past. Right, because the world as we know it today is corrupt. It's through, you know. So we have to, the scriptures say that, you know, this world has to go down because it's corrupt. If this world doesn't go down, the world or the kingdom of heaven and righteousness will not come to pass. The promise was that this world would burn, fall down, and then, you know, the next kingdom that would rule would be ruled in righteousness. So this corrupt kingdom has to go down first. Intemperance is at an end, infidelity is cut off, righteousness is grown, and truth is sprung up. And this is what we see going on right now. Hosea 12:10, I have also spoken by the prophets, and I have multiplied visions and used similitudes by the ministry of the prophets. So you have to remember that the prophets actually wrote these things down because they seen them. See, when we read it, we're reading words on a page, you know, and Barakatah Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, through the Holy Spirit, were actually able to, on a small scale, capture the images and the visions that they actually saw by pictures painted in our minds from what we read. But when the prophets wrote this, they actually saw these visions. They actually saw these similitudes and all of these things, right? So it said they searched diligently for these things and the grace that should come after, searching what or what manner of time the Spirit of Yahushai which was in them did signify, when it testified beforehand the sufferings of Yahushai and the glory that should follow. So this was the sentiment. Everyone was waiting for the Messiah. Everyone knew that when the Messiah came on the scene, he would have to suffer. And after that he suffered, he would, you know, bring the kingdom of heaven, you know. So going back, you know, that's an unbroken age. So pretty much what the Lord saw was and the prophets saw the collapse of this age or this world. That's why it says in 2nd Ezra, real quick, let's get that, the 6th chapter and the 7th verse. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times, or when shall be the end of the first? Everybody asked about the same thing, the prophets, and the beginning of it that followeth, because corruption has to die in order for righteousness to flourish. And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. Why? Because Esau would be in rulership first, and then Jacob afterwards. For Esau is the end of the world. So when you go back to this particular word here, when we go to the Latin or the Greek, the Latin word is seculi, the Greek word is eon, which means what? Age. It's synonymous with the Hebrew word iwalam, which is also age. Now it could be a long perpetuity of time, it could be an unbroken age, it could be a certain period of time. You know, and these are the kingdoms of the world. That's why it says when Yahushai comes back, it says the kingdoms of this world that become the kingdoms of Yahushai. It says, and Jacob is the, let's read it again. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So when the apostles asked this, when they were disciples, the end of the world or the end of the age, they were asking about the end of the age of, you know, the Romans. But what happened was the Romans would fall, and that wasn't really revealed to them at the time, even though the Apostle Paul had a glimpse into it. You know, the Spirit was working with him heavy like that. The Apostle John was the one that got the vision, the one that wrote it down for us in this time. And what he wrote down was that this particular beast that was the, you know, the one of the 7 heads, when they would be in rulership, which they were at that time, there will come a time when they would fall because they would be wounded. And it seemed like the wound was unto death because they fell for a long period of time. So they had to pretty much go into hibernation for a period of 1,000 years. And then after that 1,000 years, it took them that long to heal because that was the sentence that the Lord gave them. And after that, they didn't die, even though they were supposed to, because they are the end of the world, the end of the age. But they came back to life to fulfill prophecy through the Renaissance period. And we're at the point now where this resurrected beast, or this resurrected Roman Empire, or this reincarnated Roman Empire is ruling now, but they're on borrowed times. All right. So what I have here is an article, Secretive Bilderberg Gathering of Global Elites kicks off. See who's attending and what they're discussing. Right. And we're going to read a little bit of this article. We're going to jump around. I got a couple of them. But what I want to do is mention, it says here, the 69th Bilderberg meeting. Now, technically, the Bilderberg Group was created May 29, 1954. That was 68 years ago, short of a week. In a week, because today is the 22nd, in a week, it will be 69 years. Okay, yep, the transitioning of power is happening, right? Because there's going to be a great transition, not only of power, but of wealth and of everything of the world. So in about a week, it'll be 69 years. This happens to be the 69th meeting. All right. This is 2023, the year of all the hopeful prophecies coming to pass. Next year, which is 2024, it would be the 70th year of their meetings. You know, now 7 is completion. And you've heard Elder Pastor say, that, this is, it's going to go to 2024 because of the MOTB. We're hoping that once it transitions into 2024, by the time it gets there, everything is in place for all of these prophecies just to roll right off the conveyor belt, of the pages of the scriptures, and we're hoping for that, because when all of this happens, that's when the end will come. Everything will start moving way faster than it is. You think that there's been a lot of prophecies moving fast since 2007, 2008, when you brothers first woke up to the truth, till now? Just wait till they get this system in place completely. It's going to really move lightning fast then. All right, so we're hoping that by the time the 70th, birthday, so to speak, and meeting of this group comes, that that would be, pretty much the end, We're hoping. So it says the 69th Bilderberg meeting, a secretive conclave of global power brokers. Brokers is what? This is going into the stock markets, because they handle business and officiate business for the global world. There's a lot of different things they discuss, but one of the main things they discuss is finance, economics, global economic powers or global economic futures. Has kicked off in Lisbon, Portugal, with issues on the agenda including what? Transnational threats, which whenever you read things like this, transnational threats and things of that nature, is pretty much because they're merging the world into one. Transnationals across nations. So they're merging the world into one. So what are the threats? What are the transnational threats? Anyone in any of these places around the world that is threatening their agenda. Anyone that is in the way. It has nothing to do with keeping the people safe. It has nothing to do with, so-called T to the errorists, and all of that. It has everything to do with those that threaten their existence, threaten their progress in this agenda. It says, so that's one, artificial intelligence, which we see the AI conveyor belt rolling out. They're pushing this thing hot and heavy. It says, and what? America's leadership in world affairs, because they know that in order for them to keep this thing going, they got to keep America, pumped up, over everything else, because this is the catapult for the new world order. There is a reason why when they came over to this side of the world, Esau came over to this side of the world, they called it what? The new world. They called Europe and those regions over there in the east. They call it the old world, because from here they started to catapult, or this is the diving board for the new world order. So going down, it says this year's meeting, the latest in the series that began in 1954, continues to blur the lines, and that's on purpose. They don't want things to be, made known to the people. They want everything to be vague, because they don't want people to know the true, intentions of this group. Between open diplomacy and clandestine elitism. Elitism, these are the elites, because the elite classes was pushing for this new world order. As political leaders brush shoulders with industry bigwigs, because these elite political leaders, or that officiate these meetings and these different, policies that they're pushing, they're doing it for the so-called banking elite. And through the industry, through these corporations, is how they're getting the agenda going. It says media barons and finance tycoons. It's all about that finance, that no man may buy or sell save he that has the charagma. It is a really high-octane list, leaning heavily into the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the future of NATO. Journalist Charlie Skelton, who was in Lisbon to cover this year's event, told the Epoch Times in an email statement, as usual, the details of the discussion remain obscured by the Chatham House Rule, a protocol that gives participants the discretion to use the information gleaned from the talks, but forbids the identification of speakers or participants, ensuring anonymity. Thanks to the private nature of the meeting, the participants take part as individuals rather than in any official capacity, and hence are not bound by the conventions of their office or by pre-agreed positions, a Bilderberg meeting press release reads. Among the major topics slated in the discussion are artificial intelligence, the banking system, energy transition, and industrial policy trade. Why? Because in order for them to get these smart cities and everything off the ground, they have to cut off all of these other means of energy. And industrial policy and trade, economy, all of these things are doing what? Leading everything into a digital system. Other high priority issues include the geopolitical landscape of Europe, China, India, Russia, and Ukraine, along with NATO and America's global leadership. The topic of U.S. leadership, which last appeared on the Bilderberg agenda in 2018, comes as China and Russia have ramped up their efforts to reduce reliance on the U.S. dollar as the world preeminent reserve currency. See? It says because they're trying to keep this going, but pretty much they're trying to keep it going, but then again, it's really a pretense, because they want to come up with this new world currency, which the new world currency is pretty much the charagma, the MOTB, the micro C-hip, so you could understand. All of this other stuff is a lot of smoke and mirrors, control opposition, making it seem like that's how they really want it, but they really don't. So it says the agenda outlined by the group is as follows: AI, banking system, because these are the top priorities. The artificial intelligence and the banking system, because they all work hand in hand. This is why everything is going global. That's why it says no man may buy or sell. Why? Because everything would have to be on the grid. In order for you to be on that grid, there would be a lot of restrictions. There would be, compliance that would have to be, have to take place. You see? It says China, energy transition, Europe, fiscal challenges, India, industrial policy and trade, NATO, Russia, transnational threats, Ukraine, U.S. leadership. So all of these are the main topics on the list, but notice AI and banking system are on the top of it, and you can read on and on. I put these in the description box. It gives you a list of the participants, so on and so forth. Now, we'll read a little of this. This is Bilderberg meeting. The Bilderberg meeting, also known as the Bilderberg Group, is an annual off-the-record conference established in 1954 to foster dialogue between Europe and North America. The group's agenda, originally to prevent another world war, bullshit, is now defined as bolstering a consensus around the free market. Everything is about the market. Everything is about trade. Everything is about brokering. Western capitalism. Western. And its interests around the globe. See? Global agenda. Revelation 3:10. It speaks about, the world, and it also speaks about the earth. This is a global thing that they're going to push. And when they push this, they're going to force the world into making decisions as to taking this device, because if they don't take the device, they will not be able to maneuver in the system. All right. Participants include political leaders, experts, captains of industry, finance, academia, numbering between 120 and 150. Attendees are entitled to use information gained at meetings, so on and so forth. And it gives you, more. I'll put this in the description box if you're interested. What I'm going to do in the interest of time is, this is the secretive Bilderberg Group is a key to understanding the global power elite. And I'm going to hit this as a chick, reading. I sped it up a little bit, just to be able to get through it, a little bit of it. And I'll try to stop at the main points and, just to make some other points, and then we'll just take it from there. Let's go.
The secretive Bilderberg Group is a key to understanding the global power elite. Institutions like the Bilderberg Group play a vital role in constructing a global ideological consensus among elites that is then brought home and applied to the nation.
Right. It's the plans of the elites. All right.
Most countries in the Western world operate under a practically unquestionable assumption that they are democratic, in the sense that there is a plurality of different interests in society at any given time, and each of them has an equal opportunity of gaining significant political power. The very concept of an elite class, with more influence than mostly everyone else, is deemed a relic of history. C. Wright Mills, author of The Power Elite, explained that these understandings have a certain romantic appeal, because a supposed balance of interests, without elite interference, makes each of them really quite impotent. Then no one set of higher circles and no manageable set of institutional arrangements can be held accountable for the events and decisions of our time. But
and they don't want the people to know what's really going on. And the thing is, like, when you tell these people what's going on, they don't believe you anyway. And that brought to mind this quote from Marshall McLuhan: only the small secrets need to be protected. The large ones are kept secret by public incredulity. So when you tell them the big secrets, they don't believe it because it's so far-fetched that they're not going to accept it. And the scriptures tell us that these people out here are under a big cloud of darkness. Isaiah 60:2 says, "For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people." So there is a gross darkness of these people. It's not that they're blind physically, but they're blind spiritually, and they can't see. They can't see what's going on because the Spirit of the Lord hasn't opened up their mind to it. Then you have, Edomites and other individuals that their eyes have been opened by the research that they've done into the way things are running in this world, from information that they've received on, research that they've done on their own, but also information that they've received from those that, what they call defectors of the so-called New World Order, or the so-called Illuminati, or whatever you want to call them. They were once a part of it, and then they broke off because they didn't agree with it, because it was the plans are heart-wrenching, and you have to have a person with no soul in order to really get down with that. And this is why Aaron Russo was not the candidate for that, because we believe that he's a Jake. He has a conscience. Yeah, he did a lot of dirt, a lot of wicked shit too, but he has a conscience because he didn't want to rule over the people. He did what he did, but he didn't want that, what the so-called elite banking families are pushing on the world, this global agenda. So it says, "But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee." Right, so the Lord is allowing the elect to see. So that's why it says, "Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee." But it's not risen upon everyone else, because the majority of the world is in darkness. And you do have those from among these different groups out there that have done research that actually could see. Why? Because they're people from within that have come out and exposed them. You even had an individual that was a part of the group called Carol Quigley, who wrote a book called Tragedy and Hope, in which he exposed them. He didn't give names or anything like that because they didn't want it, and he agreed with all their plans. The only part he didn't like was the secretive part, which now is not really much of a secret anymore because their whole mission and agenda is in full force. So they don't really care about the secretive things anymore. So Psalms 64:8 says, so they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves, right? So from within these groups, they have actually defected and have begun to speak about it. And anyone that speaks against the New World Order, that really comes out with real information, against them, they get offed, and this is why there's a great, insurrection against the Hebrew Israelites, because this is the biggest threat to their agenda. Yes, those that expose them, the whistleblowers and all that, those are threats, but the main threat are the Israelites. This is why there's going to be an all-out assault and attack on those that fear the Lord. This is what's going to usher in Jacob's trouble. This MOTB, when they really get this thing to get teeth in it and moving forward, that's going to cause a lot of problems for the elect. But the Lord is going to protect the elect, but the ones that are going to really be affected are going to be the Israelites out there that are not a part of the elect. And they are still Jacob, so that's going to be the time of Jacob's trouble for them. So it says, all that see them shall flee away, right? So how are they seeing them? Well, we're seeing them because the Spirit revealed them to us, but also the ones that are out there that are not a part of Israel, that are of the other nations, they see because they have had, as I said, defectors from within that came out and exposed these groups, and all kind of information is coming out on it. So they're seeing it. So going back to the article, it says,
world of constant conflict, economic strife, and political hypocrites, perhaps it is at least worth considering the other side of the argument for once. In Mill's conceptualization of a power elite, he explained how a uniquely powerful grouping of economic, political, and military interests emerged after World War II that had the means to make decisions with significant consequences for the whole of American society.
Right, so let's see if we can find that part. Right. In Mill's conceptualism of a power elite, he explained how a uniquely powerful grouping of economic, political, and military interests emerged after World War II. So notice it's economic, political, and military, because they have that power, through their military, because the Lord has blessed them with the sword. Let's go real quick to the book of Genesis. And you have to understand, this is Esau's blessing is the sword, which today the modern day sword would be the gun. So no one out there is more skilled in that contraption than these devils. So Genesis 27:38. And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the what? The fatness of the earth. And you see that. If you type in Rothschild estates, you certain cats, they brag and boast because they have a nice apartment, and the apartment is laced with all kind of, of the latest equipment, and marble from Italy, and just different things that are precious to them. But really, that shit is nothing. An apartment, a house. Are you serious? You apartment, a house, a condo. That ain't shit. You talking about mansions. You talking about not even mansions, greater than mansions, palaces. Just cathedrals. Just like, and land as far as I could see. I mean, just things that you couldn't even look at because you can't afford it. It costs money just to look at it. You know? So they have the dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. It says, and of the dew of heaven from above. So they have the best of everything. Because this was the blessing that Yahushua as Isaac gave them. And by thy sword shalt thou live. So how did they get this? They got it by the sword. And that spirit that is in Esau to do this through the blessing of the sword goes all the way back to Cain and Tubal Cain, which the word Tubal Cain, Tawabal Quayan, means traveling weapon, which would translate into what? A mercenary. Because this is what Esau is. They're the America, which is the military power of the New World Order. They're pretty much nothing more than mercenaries for the so-called elite that go around the world and pretty much officiate their business. This is why, what was that general's name? Smedley Butler. You know, he said he was operating on 3 continents, you know, and getting, you know, setting everything up for America pretty much to take over. You know, he said, you know, he could have taught Capone a thing or two about that. Because Capone operated in 3 districts or something like that. He operated in 3 continents. You know? You don't know what it is to live. You don't know what it is to have all of these things at your disposal. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, wherein who is he? You don't have that access. None of us have that access. But we're going to get it through our Lord Yahushua when he comes back. So this system, this world, this age has to fall before we can even get into power. You see, it says, and by thy sword shalt thou live and shalt serve thy brother. So pretty much this is how they got the fatness of the earth and the dew from heaven above. And how do they keep it? By the sword. This is how they live. This is why when Nebuchadnezzar saw the vision of the statue, the head of gold all the way down, the feet were part iron and part clay. Because that iron represented the might of their military. But the clay represented the weakness of their economy. You see? And then all of that wealth that they have, which the Spirit made me say this before, you better believe that Esau, these so-called elite, they don't have, you know, bank vaults full of FRNs. They have bank vaults full of tangible, intrinsic value items like gold and silver and jewelry and artwork, you know, and things of that nature. Manuscripts and paperwork that is worth, you know, records that are worth, you know, more than, I can't even put a number to it. All right. So that's how they living. How you living? So it says, so it's a uniquely powerful grouping of economic, political, and military interests emerged after World War II, right? Because after World War II, what happened? After World War II, you had something known as the Bretton Woods Agreement, the Bretton Woods Conference. They met, you know, I believe that was Rhode Island, if I'm not mistaken, and there they hashed out what? They got the go-ahead to make the U.S. dollar. That was around 1944, 1945. They got the go ahead to make the U.S. dollar the reserve currency of the world, knocking off the British pound. And prior to that, it was the Dutch something. I keep forgetting the name of the Dutch one, because prior to Britain, the Dutch had the world reserve currency. Then after them, I believe that was in the 1800s. Then the British pound came in, and remember the scriptures say that they ruled for a short period of time. Then in 1944, 1945, America took over, leading that whole economic race, so to speak, by the U.S. dollar becoming the world reserve currency. All right. So after World War II, that had the means to make decisions with significant consequences for the whole of American society. And that's why today you see the effects of it. The effects of this central government, or the third central government, which is the Fed, you know, has had a devastating effect on American society. And this is why you see so-called inflation, which is nothing more than the devaluing of the money system. That's all it is. The rising prices is the effect of the demoralization, or not so much the demoralization, the devaluing of the money that is used to purchase these things. And pretty much what that is a false balance. Let's go real quick to Micah. Micah chapter 6. And verse 9. I'll start at, 10. Are there yet the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked? Right, because these are their treasures. Wickedness. How do they get rich? By charging interest, which interest translates to the scriptural usury. Which the money that they're giving you, which they're charging interest on, pretty much is worthless pieces of paper that they've created out of nothing, printed out of nothing, and they've lent it to the government. They've made the people, take it, and the people are using it to buy it. Therefore, this is where the debt is coming from. So this is how they pretty much became rich throughout the planet. One of the ways. It says, and the what scant measure, that is abominable, because this scant measure, or the things that you're using as a measure or as your so-called money system, is abominable to the Lord, because a false balance is abomination to the Most High. And the balance goes into the measurements, the weights and measures of money, of goods. So when we look up the word scant is ratazawan, or ratazawan, leanness, scantness, wasting. In other words, scantness of measure. In other words, right here, like it says, thinness. Let's look up the word scant to get a little bit more. Scant, barely sufficient or adequate. See, this is why, people are catching hell. Because as the time progresses, the living cost increases, but the wages are not really increasing to meet the demand for living, for food, and so on and so forth. Therefore, the people are catching hell, and the people are crying out, like the brothers posted in James the 5th chapter. People are catching hell. Jake is catching hell, crying out to the Lord, and the Lord hears these things. But because the Lord ain't really do nothing to these devils, what's happening is they're lifted up. So let's go back. These are the scant measures, and this is what they've been doing. This is what all of these secret meetings are all about. Your Bilderberg meetings, your World Economic Forum meetings, out in Davos, in Switzerland, and all around the world, hammering out policies for the future, not the future of the people for their benefit, but the future of, their goals, which is what? The so-called New World Order. And I'm going to hold this on deck because this is a very good precept, very good scripture, which we go to, when it comes to these so-called international banking families. So let's go back to here. It says the narrow and centralized group of everything is centralized. This is why they're bringing everything and bringing it into one. Universal, to turn into one. Global, everything is global. You hear everything global now. CBDC, central bank digital currency, all being set up globally. It says the narrow and centralized group of individuals at the apex of economic, political, and military hierarchies constituted an elite with the technical and institutional means of power. See? Technical and institutional means of power, because they have control of everything. They have more than heart can wish. So if you have more than heart can wish, there's nothing that's not within your reach. The only thing that's not within their reach is what? The salvation of the kingdom of heaven. Another thing that's not within their reach is the ability, with all this money they have, is the ability to search the earth out, the ability to search the seas out, the ability to search the heavens out, they can't do these things. Because that's the only way they can be set up back as the number one, the Edomites, is by being able to search out the heavens and search out the earth and search out the seas. Then the Lord said he would do away with this. But then on top of that, they would have to make the sun stop shining, the moon stop shining, and the stars stop shining. So pretty much the Lord gave him an impossible mission. It says, which are beyond the reach of ordinary people. See? Why? Because they're the ones controlling everything. And that's how they want it. Far from conspiratorial, this was a group seeking to maintain its position of social power via the maintenance of its own coincidence of shared interests. Indeed, Mills argued that to accept either view of all history as conspiracy or all history as drift is to relax the effort to understand the facts of power and the ways of the powerful. And it goes on and on and on. I didn't read the whole article. I just read some parts of it, but the parts that I did read, which at the beginning, it has a whole lot. There's a whole lot that's going on, and they're bringing out certain information on what's going on right now. Like the brother KDC said, they're in a trick bag, right? And that brings to mind Psalm 73. All right, now I want to find the main verse. I'm glad the brother put that, which is the spirit. I want to find the main verse, but then I want to jump up. Boom. Boom, that's another point I wanted to find. Boom. So I'm just going to go hit some main points. 3, for I was envious at the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. Right, and their prosperity is large. For there is no bands in their death, but their strength is firm. Right, because it seems like they'll never go down. It seems like they're getting stronger and stronger, but they're really not. They're getting weaker and weaker. It says they are not in trouble as other men. Why? Because they have the finances to get out of whatever situation they're in. It says neither are they plagued like other men. Right, because they have access to everything. Everyone else is relegated to what? To medication, to even those that go to naturopaths and deal with, with herbs and things of that nature. We're getting stuff that really technically doesn't really work that well, because a lot of those herbs and things that we get have been irradiated, have been all messed up, have been sitting around for so long that they really don't have the potency. This is why when you take stuff, I say, man, this shit really ain't doing nothing. But it's not that it don't do anything. It has virtues to it, but the virtues are lessened because of the way that they set it up. And we don't have access to the good shit. We have access to the bullshit. The scriptures say we would eat our bread defiled among the nations. So you think if we're going to eat our bread defiled among the nations, the medicines that we be able to take from the earth will not be also defiled? Neither are they plagued like other men. Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain. Violence covereth them as a garment. Right, because everything around them is all about violence. They are the harbinger of death. And that pretty much, that movie, man, that captures a whole lot. And there's a part in the movie, right, at the end where Dr. Zayas said, look, answer me this. If man was so superior, really dealing with Esau, why were they wiped out? And this guy said, well, because of a plague. And he said a meteor shower or something like that. By some looks at this place, that seems possible. But that meteor shower, which I've heard that many times, but when I heard it as of late, that meteor of shower was really the missiles. This is why in the second one, underneath the Planet of the Apes, they showed you the missile that they worship. So that meteor of showers that he spoke about was really not talking about some regular meteors. It was talking about the meteors that John on the island of Patmos saw. Every one about the weight of a talent, every stone. Let's go to that real quick. And then we'll come back to that. Revelation 16. And 19. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before the Most High. Yeah, because these nations, all of their rulerships are going to be turned over to the Lord. And great Babylon came in remembrance before the Most High to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Right, because he used her to deceive the world, and now he's going to pour his wrath upon her. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven. This great hail out of heaven was that so-called meteor shower that Charlton Heston was speaking about, that man was destroyed by. You see? And it's heavy because, I don't know if they put it in there, as a metaphor or just to those that know, but when you see the ending of the movie, you see how they showed you the so-called Statue of Liberty destroyed, which all along he was in America, specifically in New York, which is the capital of America. I believe that their motto is Excelsior. So that whole thing was a depiction of the future. The apes represent Jake. The Edomites were in captivity. The Edomites were what? In loincloths. Even though they ain't gonna be in no loincloths in the kingdom of heaven, they're gonna be in sackcloth, but not in loincloths like that. But that represents Esau in his beastly state. Man. So, and then in the second one, they showed you how those that were working, telepathically through their mind, they had, underground places where they were hiding, and which represented the bunkers, and then they had what? The missile that they worshipped, and then when the Brent, I think the guy's name was, in the second one, when he was being chased by the apes and he ran into that cave, he realized he was underground in Queens somewhere, I believe it was, in America, in New York. So there was all kind of subliminal. Then he kept walking, and they show you him walking through Wall Street, and them different, major cities and buildings that they have in New York, which the scriptures speak about the stones of emptiness, and the line of confusion. And that's what's going to happen. There ain't going to be none of that, but they had to show that in order to let people know where they were at. But when the kingdom of heaven is established in America's, when America's destroyed and the kingdom of heaven is established, there ain't going to be none of that. You ain't going to be able to see the Statue of Liberty sticking out the ground. You ain't going to be able to see, ruins, like you see ruins in Rome. You're not going to see ruins of America. The subway, some parts of the subway are still intact. They're just jacked up, got leaks in it. You're not going to see great adventure sign cocked to the side, and everything else around it burnt up. You're not going to see any Ferris wheels. You're not going to see any Disneyland. You're not going to see a piece of the Pentagon, or a piece of the Empire State Building. You ain't going to see none of that. It's all going to be destroyed, completely wiped out, and there will never be any inhabitant here at all ever again, except for those wild creatures that the Lord spoke about that would inhabit this place. So it says, and there fell a great hail out of heaven, which is dealing with those missiles. And this is what's going to bring the end. Simultaneously with Yahushai, Michael the Archangel, and the rest of the angels fighting against Esau's military in the air, along with the other nations' military and those fighter jets. It says every hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent, about anywhere from 75 to 100 pounds. And this is what he described it as. Now don't come on, when you weigh an actual nuclear missile, it actually weighs 20 tons, and shut the hell up. All right, he described it from what he had back then. There's no way for him to say, well, oh, that actually weighs 75, 100 pounds, or whatever the case may be. This is what what he had available to him. You know, just like he said when he saw the heavens roll together as a scroll, today they call it a mushroom cloud. Why didn't he call it a mushroom cloud? Because the mushroom cloud terminology didn't exist back then. It says every stone about the weight of a talent, and men blasphemed the Most High because of the plague of the hail. From the plague, for the plague thereof was exceeding great, because this is the final judgment on this place, and this is what's going to bring the end of Esau's age, the end of his world. And as we read in the New King James Version and in others, it says, tell us when all these things shall be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age. What age? The age of the Romans, which were in the very last leg of the age of the Romans today, which is America, which is the revival of the ancient Roman Empire. But like Elder Pastor mentioned in his lessons, when he goes into the Blue Letter, I'm sorry, not the Blue Letter Bible, into the Bible Hub, when he goes to those commentaries, whenever you go into scriptures on Revelation and things that pertain to America or Babylon the Great, they never touch it and say it's America. And I believe that they believe that. They know that it is, but they can't talk about that. You see? So, when you get a chance, those you brothers that are interested, you could watch this or read this. Secretive Bilderberg Gathering of Global Elite kicks off. See who's attending and what they're discussing. I just typed in Bilderberg meeting, was reading some of this. You have that quote by Marshall McLuhan. And this article right here, which I believe I put this in the description box. I don't know for sure, but you know what I'll do on this one? I believe I put it in there, but let me put it here in the comment section for y'all. Now, let me just finish it off with Psalm 73 and 6 on down. Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain, violence covereth them as a garment. And that's why it says, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. Why? Because America was established upon violence, and it's still continuing on in violence, and it's going to be brought down by violence. When thou cease to matter of fact, let me get that. I can't think of the actual word. Isaiah 33 and 1. Woe to thee that spoilest, and thou wast not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. Nobody did you wrong, asshole. But you are set up as that a vessel of wrath fitted to destruction. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled, and when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. Thus violence, violence begets violence. You brought violence on the earth, you're going to get violence. The word there is bagad, to act treacherously, deceitfully, deal treacherously. Yeah, deceitfully, offend. And you did some real serious, heinous crimes. You got to pay for it. So violence covereth them as a garment. Their eyes stand out with fatness. They have more than heart could wish. Behold, these are the ungodly, this is verse 12, who prosper in the world. They increase in riches. Right. And that's all you see. That's why the scriptures say, woe to you, rich men. The 18th verse, surely thou didst set them in what? In slippery places. Because that greed that they got, that pride that they got them pushing forward, keep moving, on it. And guess what? It's going to be the thing that destroys them. Because at the end of the day, I believe KDC put it up, they dig the ditch and they're going to fall into it. Thou castest them down into what? Destruction. This is the future of America. This is the future of Esau. Destruction. Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. How are they brought into desolation? Right, here it is. You got this great military, this great power, all these riches. How are you brought into desolation? As in a moment. It's only going to take 1 hour, baby. And you're going to be totally annihilated. And then you're going to go into captivity. To add insult to injury, as they say. They are utterly consumed with terrors. Why? Because it's not going to go your way, Esau. That's a lesson right there. It's not going to go your way, Esau. Anybody that wants it, alley-oop. It's not going to go your way, Esau. Or it's not going to go your way, E. As a dream when one awaketh, so, O Lord, when thou awakest, thou shalt despise their image. Right. And pretty much something similar like this is written in Job, the 20th chapter. Let me see. Where is that part? Oh no, that's in Job 20. All right. Matter of fact, let's go to that one. Job 20. Let me get that real quick. And then let me read this. Job 5:12. He disappointed the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grow up in the noonday as in the night. Yeah. And these are all their secret meetings. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Job 20:22. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. When they got the world in their hand, which they pretty much are there almost, every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. The wicked here is dealing with all of those that labored for this devil. And they've been, shorthanded, the oppressed financially. When he is about to fill his belly, right, he got the dinner all prepared. He about to snack on that New World Order dinner. The Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him, which is going to come in the form of those nuclear missiles and the lasers from the chariots, and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. And after that, and it tells you what the judgment that he's going to bring, which is the iron weapon, which is that missile. And they know that that's going to bring about their end. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.